our next speakers. I am talking about leaders in the industry, cross-industry leaders for excellence, innovation, culture, business, and digital transformation. So please join me, Bobby, Jeff, and Peter. I will briefly introduce each one of our participants here. This will be a great conversation about your race to become a fully automated enterprise. I will start with Bobby Patrick here. He is the CMO of UIPath, the fastest growing and leading provider of robotic process automation and AI software in the world. In his role, he leads global marketing strategy and execution as UIPath continues to usher in the automation first era, helping businesses of all sizes digitize everyday business operations and apply AI to deliver true digital transformations. A technologist at heart, Patrick has driven significant growth in technology businesses for more than 2 decades, ranging from Fortune 50 organizations to startups. He is joined by Jeff King as the Vice President of Procurement and Process Development at Sonic Automotive. Jeff is responsible for leading Fortune 300 companies throughout a wide range of responsibilities, including procurement, supply chain, robotic process automation, AP, and customer service. Jeff oversees 15,000 suppliers with a $1.2 billion annual spend, and he also serves as the chair of the Center of Process Excellence, focusing on process improvement and automation. Joining us as well, we have Peter Marra. Peter is the Intelligent Automation Lead at ADT Security. During his 8+ year tenure at ADT, he has worked in various roles. His time spent in accounting, financial systems, and FP&A has afforded him the opportunity to expand his knowledge of the business and its relationship to finance and technology, ultimately leading to a role centered around intelligent automation. Gentlemen, thank you so much on behalf of our global audience today for taking the time to share your expertise and insights on this incredibly exciting journey of digital transformation.
Great to be here.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you, Josie. I really appreciate this. This is an exciting, hopefully, session for everyone at BTOES. I was here a year ago, the early days of COVID. It's great to see how far we've evolved. I'm thrilled to be here with Peter and Jeff, who are going to tell you some amazing stories, fun stories at both ADT and Sonic Automotive around automation. But first, I want to kind of set it up, if I can, a bit about kind of the what's going on right now and what is now the fastest growing enterprise software category in the world. It actually has been the fastest growing software category for 3 years, according to Gartner. And so there's something really big going on here. So I'll kind of set it up, hopefully, and then I'll hand it over to my good friends, Peter and Jeff. First of all, I just want to kind of look back. You all know this. This is not rocket science, but automation's been a big part of how we've progressed as humans and as a society over the last few centuries, right? When the Industrial Revolution kicked off, certainly in agriculture, right, with the invention, the first of the cotton gin, automation has transformed the way we do agriculture, right, today. And it used to be people doing all the work. Today, it's people and robots and a lot of automation that obviously help create a strong agricultural supply chain. Industrial processes, particularly during the last century, automotive vehicles, and you mentioned the Model T with Ford and such. Clearly, that was an amazing thing to automate getting from place to place versus riding on the back of a horse or hiking. And then even looking at today, automation is being applied to automotive around just self-driving cars, right? And the beauty of the self-driving cars is that they are automation is being applied to the existing infrastructure. We don't have to rebuild our roads or rebuild even signs. Autonomous vehicles can use the infrastructure that's in place today, right? And so automation has been a big part of how we've evolved as a society. But today's work, really all around us, everyone on this webinar, I imagine, certainly at Sonic as well and ADT, today's work is largely digital. It's repetitive, it's monotonous. A lot of employees spend a lot of time in front of a screen, a tablet, a phone, performing and working between different systems. The real challenge has been is what can we do to actually help workers be more creative and be more valuable and make this digital work more productive? And this has been a big challenge that UiPath has tried to solve since we were founded back in 2005. And certainly today it's fairly obvious with the advent of robotic process automation and things, but really this is at the heart of what automation is all about. And I've got two quotes I wanted to share with you quickly. One came from the CEO of Accenture, who said, digital is the main reason that just over half of the companies in the Fortune 500 have disappeared since the year 2000, meaning their ability to adapt to digital and to become more productive with all of the digital processes and the realities of how we do work today. And then the second one here is, during the COVID crisis and the recovery, boards are demanding an acceleration of digital business. So what we're kind of seeing here is this perfect storm of this challenge that companies are faced with today in terms of repetitive work, monotonous work, holding back a customer experience, holding back the ability to become more productive, creating sleepless nights for finance teams trying to close books every month, every quarter, accelerated by COVID, when people realize, wow, I need to adapt fast to these changes in the reality of the world, supply chains or hiring or operations. And so really automation became one of the only tools in the tool bag that could really adapt quickly and help make people more productive in what is today a digital reality. And then what's behind this challenge and complexity, and you all probably see this as well across your company of any size, are many systems, many databases, hundreds, thousands of within different companies and organizations. And these different kind of patchwork of technologies, they're not optimized, lean, or connected, right? They're often pulled together by humans who interact with processes, get an email, respond to an email, download a PDF, look into Salesforce, create a PDF, update a record, and then send a response back. A variety of systems that are involved. The problem is, because of all of these systems and databases, we've kind of had a stagnation in productivity for the last couple of decades. And so these billions of hours are spent on manual tasks, and it's not getting easier, it's getting harder. I'm sure you all see it as well. I have it even at UiPath in our marketing organization. We're adding new systems, new data, new third-party systems, new tools to try to adapt our marketing organization, but it creates complexity in how we perform our processes. So what's happening here? So RPA, this new kind of approach here, again, with the fastest growing enterprise software category, kind of delivers a new approach to solving this complexity, to solving the productivity stagnation, and is creating amazing time to value and return on investment now that's thrilling companies around the world. We have 8,000 plus or 8,500 plus customers worldwide today, almost all of the Fortune 100. And so you have this kind of momentum happening. People realize, wow, this is how I can deliver digital transformation fast. So this example here just showed you a robot interacting between NetSuite and Salesforce, going to Outlook and then Slack to send a message. Really, there are millions of use case possibilities around any kind of connection between any kind of system, any kind of use case. What a robot does is basically interacts with those systems like a human does and performs that work for them to augment them and to help free them up to be more creative. So what happens here is these robots, if you're not familiar then with automation and robotic process automation, essentially these robots look at a screen. They're not physical robots with hands, but the robots that run on a computer, but they look at a screen like a human does. They can see a screen, they can know where different applications are. They can think and they can understand, okay, this screen is over here, I can go do this, I can move, and they can create basically a robot can perform a process, that perhaps is done dozens or thousands or hundreds of times in a call center or in finance operations or in HR. And then the robots can then perform that work with the same reliability and resiliency of a human. And if you don't realize it, actually how you look at a screen is quite complex. So to get a robot to really be able to look at a screen where things can move and fields can change and do that process for you over and over and over, even when things change, with complete 100% resiliency and reliability, that's the breakthrough behind it. We call that computer vision. And essentially it's an automation layer now that we've created that's on top of all of those databases and systems that allow you to kind of digitize processes. And what happens here, big ROI returns, employees have, create new capacity for a company. And it's, and this is what's exciting right now hear this from, from Peter Peter and Jeff. So this theme of this session really about is becoming this race that we see now across organizations worldwide who don't want to be like in that Accenture quote, who want to stay and be thriving leaders in their industries in 5, 10, 20 years. They don't want to be put out of business by others who are digitizing faster and improving their customer experience faster with automation. So there's a race going on here. And so really a fully automated enterprise and there are very few that are fully automated. Everybody's on this journey. And Jeff and Peter will tell you this kind of as well. But this is sort of the destination now that CEOs and CFOs and board of directors now are driving as automation becomes a boardroom priority. And there's 4 kind of areas of a fully automated enterprise. One is a fully automated enterprise thinks about how do I assign all automatable work to robots? And that exists in every function in every organization. Even in marketing at UiPath, I have robots that do the work of about a fifth of my employee base, right? So that I can, our employees can spend more time on creative functions, and a lot of that's repetitive work. But we're more productive as an organization, and it's good for our, for our employees and for our bottom line as well. A fully automated enterprise thinks about how do I provide a robot for every employee. So what's beautiful is you can download our technology onto your laptop, or you can use our cloud automation cloud, and you can build robots literally over the weekend to do work for you. We have this happening right now in over 1,000 universities around the world. Big universities, in the U.S., large-scale universities. Their business school students are learning how to use UiPath as their #1 tool when they graduate. Big schools like William & Mary in my backyard in D.C., George Mason, VCU, James Madison University, and University of Maryland. All the college graduates are graduating with this technology being sort of a weapon, much like Excel was when I was younger and Lotus 1, 2, 3, as it was in the world of accounting and mathematics. UiPath is that same kind of phenomenon. Third, a fully automated enterprise democratizes development. How do we make it easy for everyone, even if you're not technical or you're not an engineer, you don't know how to code, to be able to automate what you do and have robots do work for you? And so that's kind of the simplicity behind this technology. People in HR, people in finance no longer have to depend on IT or engineers who are constrained and keeping systems current to be able to go create automations that then digitally transform a process, right? So democratizing development is key. And then finally, every organization knows at some point they have to apply AI to make their business more competitive, to help make decisions, in a call center from rules-based to experience-based, right? And to create the ability for a robot to help a human make a better and smarter decision based on experience. And so really what a fully automated enterprise does is it unleashes AI across every facet of a business as you apply a model to that automation that's flowing, through your organization. So, in essence, what's happening here, the kind of why this market is so on fire and people are so excited about it is people are realizing that if I can become a fully automated enterprise, this is how I actually become a digitally transformed enterprise. And so we, UiPath, kind of my one slide on kind of the product set, I don't want to confuse anyone or not, but we have a platform now that helps people find the processes to automate. Which ones are high impact, low risk? Which ones can provide the highest return on investment? How do I build the automations fast? Really fast time to value, days and weeks, not months and years, which we're used to in kind of traditional B2B, technology projects, right? How do I then manage and govern these robots so that they're secure, so we know what's going on for compliance and things as we build out our kind of robotic workforce in our organization? How do I run these robots efficiently? Maybe they run, on a laptop, or they run in our cloud, or they run for a dispatch worker, at Verizon or Rogers Communications, big customers of ours, helping make their experience in the field better, right? So robots are kind of running in different locations in a way that's optimal, along with the human worker as well. And then ultimately, how do I help people engage with robots easily and then measure and govern these? And this is sort of a platform that is what we call a flywheel that spins faster as people get more excited about this. You'll see this from Peter and Jeff. There's an excitement that builds as people realize this technology, what it can do for companies and the return on investment. So with that, and I do talk fast, I apologize for that, but with that, I will hand over to the more important part of the presentation, to real life scenarios. And first up here, Peter Marra from ADT. Peter, take it away.
Thank you, Bobby. That was a great introduction. I'm really glad to be here today and want to say thanks to Jose for leading this. I'm really looking forward, excuse me, to sharing with all you in the audience a little bit about how and why we use UiPath. I think Bobby did a great job of setting it up and relaying the excitement that we're feeling here. So I lead the Intelligent Automation program here at ADT. Our program started a little over a year ago, and we're just getting bigger and bigger with each passing day. I'd like to start out by providing a little bit of context and background on ADT and some of our current initiatives. So you can go to the next slide. ADT's been around for a while. In fact, probably some of you are customers. Maybe some of your neighbors are. You've probably seen our ubiquitous blue yard signs and our commercials on TV and online YouTube. Each of the numbers on this slide tells its own story, but collectively they add up to the fact that we are a trusted brand that operates at scale and in the business of protecting people and property and saving lives. And I bring this up because it's important for two reasons. First, we have to make sure that any changes and improvements we make here can work at scale. And secondly, because we're so big, even making small improvements will add up. And I'll talk about that in just a bit. Go to the next slide. Because we've been around for so long, it's safe to say that most people think of ADT as an alarm company or a monitoring company, and they're right, that is our bread and butter. But today's home is increasingly becoming a smart home, the connected home. And this gives us the opportunity to evolve our own offers and expand the types of protection that we provide. And so I want to just share just a few things that we're working on within that context. And the next slide. So across ADT, we are working on numerous initiatives, too many to individually identify. So we like to talk about them in terms of three categories: Connect and Protect, Smarter Security, and ADT Anywhere. Connect and Protect is our core offer, the bread and butter, as I mentioned before, what we're mostly known for today. But with our advances in technology, we're able to make our bread and butter even better. For instance, we're working on ways to use sensors in the home to tell responders that there's not only a fire in the house, but how many people are in the house, on what floor, and in what room. We might also be able to recognize that a family member didn't come home like he or she normally is supposed to, and then send a text to your phone notifying you that. We're also working with a range of technologies to help businesses increase security and reduce costs. And all these fall under what we call smarter security. And just as connected technology has revolutionized home and business security, it's also giving us the ability to offer ADT protection on the go. Our So Secure mobile app puts the power of monitoring service in the palm of your hand. Just tap the app and ADT can send assistance to your phone's GPS location. Now, I could go on and on about all the cool things we're working on here, but what I've been asked to speak to you about is RPA and our program. So I just wanted to share some of the innovation that we have going on underway here at ADT. So next slide, as a publicly traded company operating in industry where accuracy and speed can't be mutually exclusive, ADT is adapting new technologies to ensure we can deliver on our brand promise of security and protection. In particular, we look for ways to help execute on efforts within those three pillars as I just discussed. But broadly speaking, we look at RPA as a way to both boost accuracy and compliance, as Bobby mentioned, as well as reduce non-value added tasks that can keep our team from spending more time with customers, solving problems, moving projects forward, being more creative. It's through this lens that we've been working with UIPath, and I'm going to share a couple examples of how our approach to RPA has benefited both ADT and our customers. So on the next slide, our automation journey began with a pilot in our financial services group. We identified two processes that we deemed to be relatively low complexity, that had high volumes and that were impactful in terms of the work that was being done, one of which was actually a key SOX control. So traditionally, these processes involve making customer account updates or comparing account components for accurate setup. Sometimes these actions could lead to small but important errors, which could ultimately be caught in audits and corrected. So not only was the process time consuming, but the time needed to audit and revise was also costly. And since implementing RPA, we've seen a reduction in errors as well as time to completion. Through RPA, we're able to reduce the average handle time of these two processes by over 60%. Now, while auditors haven't done a full SOX audit on the one process yet, we anticipate a reduction or complete elimination of those SOX deficiencies. And on the next slide, we're in the midst of automating certain tasks for our field representatives today. Most of the business is driven from field staff that sells to, installs for, and services our customers. We're looking at the entire spectrum of intelligent automation to support our field staff, allowing them to focus more on the value-added work and less on the administrative parts of our job. So for instance, our field system installers, as part of their job, they currently have to call an ADT agent after each install is completed at a customer's home. And they call to confirm the account has been set up properly. This takes time for both the installer and the ADT agent on the other line, meaning both have less time to take care of the other customers. So we found a way to automate the account confirmation process, leading to increased time for more value added activities. And as we saw with our pilot in the finance team, we can expect an increase in accuracy, which will reduce the number of potential issues a customer might have post-install. Internally, we've given an identity to our new digital workforce. We call them Blue Bots. We are currently planning to expand our reach into all areas of our business. We did an initial opportunity scan late last year where we spoke to over 20 business functions, 20 groups across a variety of business functions, and uncovered about 100 different opportunities for RPA, mostly consisting of back office processes. We plan to continue this search this year for more opportunities, scanning new areas where we haven't looked yet. Our vision is to unleash intelligent automation across every facet of work at ADT, just like that fourth pillar there. From RPA to virtual assistants to document intelligence and machine learning, I believe there exists at ADT a use case across the entire automation spectrum. And I think it's probably safe to say that our Blue Bots are going to be very busy in the coming year. So I want to just pivot for a moment for those of you who are in the audience thinking about starting down the RPA path in your own business. Here are a few things that I just would suggest to consider. Number one is getting support at the top levels of your business, getting that executive buy-in. The best way for your program to move forward fast is with a top-down approach. Align your program and its goals with your business's overall goals. Create a C-suite steering committee that can help drive the strategy of the program. In many cases, that shouldn't be too difficult, and as I mentioned, will go a long way with getting that executive buy-in. The second item is around governance. Especially for publicly traded companies like ourselves, governance is crucial. Get connected with internal audit and information security teams. Make sure you're aligned to your company's internal policies. Create a written policy procedure document that outlines how your program will address items such as ITGCs, segregation of duty, incident, change, and risk management. I really think that having a solid governance framework will allow for a much smoother automation cycle. And the third item is partnering with IT. My program currently sits within the business, but IT are my best friends. Get to know who owns which applications, who can explain the architecture of your applications. This will prove to be very useful when automating processes and avoiding potential roadblocks and slowdowns. So these are just a few top priorities. There's a lot of things to focus on when getting started, but these are a few that I think are particularly critical when starting an automation program. And I think by putting these key components into place, you'll be in a great position to begin automating at scale. So thank you. I'll turn it back over to you now, Bobby.
Thank you, Peter. And now over to Jeff King, VP Procurement at Sonic Automotive. Jeff?
Great, thanks, Bobby. And before I jump in, I'm gonna just reiterate what Peter said. I wish I had that last slide because he is dead on. I totally agree with that. The top-down support, the steering committee, partnering with IT is critical because every time we think we know what we're gonna go automate, we find something in a system that we hadn't seen before, and we need to understand who owns it and what we're impacting. So I think those are great points. But I guess I'll jump in here with just a little bit about Sonic Automotive. We have two major brands. Sonic Automotive is our retail vehicle franchise, so it's your typical branded manufacturers of BMW, Store, Mercedes, et cetera. And then our Echo Park Automotive arm is our pre-owned brand. There's a lot of data points on this slide, but suffice to say, we've got a little over 100 locations. At the time we put the slide together, we were in 14 states. We're up to, I think, 18 today. But large company, a lot going on. And we'll just skip through this one. And two things we want to talk about today, and we'll get through them fairly quick, are one is where did we start with automation? And then the second one is just a case study that I think is interesting. It might be fun to talk through. So as far as where we started, Bobby, if you want to jump to the next slide, I think we started where probably everybody does, at our shared services center. So it's, I think Peter even pointed this out, it's back office processes that are just ripe for automation. It's repetitive, it's data entry, it's transferring information from one system to another with a lot of logic-based activities and not a lot of critical thought processes involved. And so a couple of things that we did out of the gate where we saw a big ROI early on, and we've been at this about 18 months, since about February of 2020, just before the pandemic. We've got a couple of things high level to talk through. So our factory invoice process, the manufacturers on our new car franchises, so think of like a BMW dealership, manufacturers decide what parts we're going to have in inventory in our service department. So they will send us parts, and they have access to our bank account, so they'll take the money for those parts. And to do the reconciliation, they'll post an invoice to a portal that every individual dealership has. So across the 100+ locations, you've got 100+ portals, and we had a team of folks at our shared services center that would spend all day, every day, going into each portal, downloading all of the invoices that the manufacturers have posted that day, and copying every individual line of every single part that had been sent to our dealerships, and copying that into our inventory and our accounting systems. So very manual, and it's nothing but transferring data from a portal, from a document loaded into a portal, into our accounting system. So with that, the reason we did it is we thought we could expand the services, bring more of our dealerships into the shared services center. And so we grew. We went from having 15 dealerships being supported by shared services to now all 100, and I think today it's 124. All of them, we actually eliminated one position and then grew without hiring what would have required an extra 9 people. So the ROI is valid, and we were able to grow without hiring those extra roles. The other benefits that we saw that we knew we would see, but we didn't realize how impactful they would be, are the data processing speed and accuracy. So as soon as an invoice gets posted into that portal, now it's almost instantaneous that it gets plugged into our accounting system. So we can do our reconciliations faster, which allows us from an accounting standpoint to close our books faster every month, every quarter, every year, because we're not waiting on all that data to get copied in from these invoices. And the other piece is the accuracy. Robots can't make typos. They read the information, they store it in their memory. When they go to plug it into the next system, it's not like they're keying something in as a person would, so they can't fat finger or typo. So the data is actually more accurate, which showed up very prevalently in our next process, which we'll run through real quick, is our stock-ins. Very similar manual process. The dealerships build a car, and they're going to send it to us, right? So a BMW X7 comes off the line. Before BMW's even sent it to one of our stores, they've got an invoice with the build sheet posted to our portal. And our dealerships don't know it's coming until they look at that portal. They don't have any information on it. They don't know how to price it. They can't market it. It can't go on the website until it gets into our inventory system. So that's what this team was doing. And so similar to the factory invoice process, they would log into each individual portal. They'd go find a vehicle build sheet or invoice, and they take that information and plug it into our inventory management system. So again, with that, we were able to bring more dealerships to be supported by our shared services environment, and we eliminated the need to hire 6 extra positions. But at the same time, we saw what we didn't know was happening was as manufacturers were releasing new model years, right? So you might have an X7 in 2019 that's got a platinum trim level, might say a certain thing, have a certain entertainment package, what have you. But in 2020, they rename it. And what the people were doing is they were guessing, right? So we get this X7 that rolls off the line, we get the build sheet, and the people that were doing the stock-in process didn't see an exact match to what was on the build sheet, so they would guess at what an option was before, and the people didn't all guess the same way. And so that leads to inconsistent and inaccurate inventory listings on our website. So we think we have this specific car with these specific options. We're going to look at the actual physical vehicle, and it could be a little bit different. With the robots, we actually gave them permission to update the inventory management system. So if they saw something new, they updated it and added it with all the details that are on that build sheet from the manufacturer, so we know it's accurate. And then the next robot that sees that same vehicle doesn't have to guess, it's there, it's an option. So we've actually cleaned our inventory management system almost on accident as we're going through that process. So we're stocking in vehicles faster, we're doing it more efficiently, it's much more accurate, and it allows us to sell our vehicles faster because we get them posted online much faster than we used to in the manual way. And the last one I'll touch on, then we'll get into a case study, is provisioning and termination. So like Peter mentioned, all the various applications that our team needs to do their different functions, right? We've got a huge corporate matrix that says anybody that has, job code 1 has these varying levels of access in these 38 different systems, I think is what we're up to. And we had a help desk that would go in, right? And so we hired somebody and we said, okay, we hired Bob, he's in this position. And based on his job code, he needs this access, this access, this access, all the way down the line. And that information would flow into our help desk partner. And they had a bunch of people that would go in and provision that specific access in each or whatever's appropriate of those 38 different systems. What the robots do, and that took up to 48 hours. That was the SLA we have with them to allow them to do that. What the robots do is the same thing, but again, they can't make typos. So they get the information out of the HR system and they do it almost immediately. We've put an SLA commitment back to the business of 4 hours. But we're seeing that they're being performed and completed in less than 5 minutes on average. So if we hire somebody on Monday morning at 8:30, somebody forgot to put them in HR, but they showed up at the front door, as soon as it goes in the HR system, within minutes, they've been provisioned appropriately in every system that we have. Conversely, on the termination side, right, you've got, and Peter hit on this too, right, SOX controls, and you've got important systems that may impact your financials or the various access levels. Somebody leaves your organization, you don't want them to maintain that access, and there are a lot of auditing rules and regulations that go around that, especially at public companies, that make sure that access is appropriate and in line with employment status at a minimum, right? And so with terminations, we would go through and we had controllers at every location once a quarter. They get access lists to all these different systems where they would have to go through and make sure everybody listed has the appropriate access and is still employed in that same role. 38 different systems worth times 100 dealerships. It's a massive manual reconciliation just to make sure access is appropriate. And part of that was because we had people that are fallible, right, that would receive the termination notices and then go in and try and deprovision in all those different systems. What the robots do, again, in near real time, they get the same information. They go look, they don't have to differentiate from this matrix and say, okay, Bob should have had access to these 8 systems. The robots go in and they look at every system. It doesn't matter if they should have access or not. The robot goes in and looks at every system and makes sure that Bob doesn't have access, and then actually takes a screenshot showing that it doesn't have access and stores that in a folder that we can then give to KPMG as our audit partner. And it's actually another unintended consequence that we stumbled into, but it's been phenomenal. It's reduced our audit fees. And we've had them audit the process the robot goes through, and it's become an ITGC as opposed to user access control. So we've dramatically reduced our audit expense and increased our compliance with our controls substantially. So those are some of the things we started with. And then let's jump into the next slide, Bobby, and we'll talk about a case study with our guest experience center. So we'll get into a process that we do at the Guest Experience Center and how we've supplemented that with Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan, Liam Neeson, and Kevin Costner. So if you jump into that Guest Experience Center, Bobby, so the process that we had as a manual process is leads that would come in on vehicles. We have a call center. This is our call center. These are our agents. So if you see a vehicle posted for sale on Car Gurus, Cars.com, Auto Trader, any number of third-party websites where all the major dealerships are advertising, You click on that link and it sends a lead into our CRM system that goes to this team. And what would happen is we'd get 15,000 leads a month, and they'd be dispersed, right? You can't have one person manage all those leads. And so the best thing we could do in a manual way is say, okay, we've got X number of people, divide those leads up, give some to some to this person, this person, this person, right? So they're all split up. And then each person would go through and send an email, make a phone call, whatever it is. And the majority of the leads we get are all just email contacts. And so it's now assigned to this agent, and this agent is responsible for the communication with that guest from start to finish. And so what happens is, if you were to click on a link that submits your information into our call center, that lead might get assigned with 20 other leads to, let's stick with Bob, right? Bob is your guest experience agent, and he's now going to run down his list of 20 leads that he has for today and start sending out emails to each one, right? And as he's going, he's got to complete this whole list. If the first person responds back, it's going to go right to Bob. And so all of our agents are busy going through the list while customers are responding, and they're sitting and waiting while Bob's going through his list. So that's the process that we had in a manual way. So let's talk about Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is the robot we put in place. Everybody's familiar with Sleepless in Seattle, right? So Tom Hanks' character is why we named the robot after him. He's out there searching, right? So this robot is out there just constantly looking through our CRM system. We have 124 different instances of the CRM system. So each dealership doesn't talk to each other. So Tom Hanks is constantly just recycling through all of them, looking for a new lead. And as soon as he finds one, he's going to grab the information. He's going to ingest all the details that we have about it, and he's going to pass it over to Meg Ryan. So Meg Ryan is his counterpart from Sleepless in Seattle. But as is the case, I think most places, she's the strong, powerful woman that does all the work. So she takes all that information that Tom Hanks provided on that particular lead and runs through a decision tree and says, okay, based on where this lead came from, what information we have. If it's just an email address, do we have a phone number? Did they provide custom comments or questions on different options, those sorts of things. So based on all of that, Meg Ryan, the robot's role, is to determine what's the appropriate communication cadence for that lead. And then she passes it over to Liam Neeson. And so Liam Neeson's role is, if anybody's seen Taken, this is the iconic scene, right? So Liam Neeson's role is to send off that first email and go and find that lead and try and get them engaged. So if you remember the manual process, right, we looked at the leads come in and they're assigned in buckets to the individual agents, and they run through those leads before they're able to, it might be 20 minutes, half an hour before the initial contact gets a response. With these three robots running, it's less than a minute. And so in near real time, we're trying to reach out and engage with the guests while they're engaging with us, right? This all starts when they engage with us, and this keeps that cadence going. If Liam Neeson doesn't have any success with his first email, we then have the ongoing communication cadence, which in some cases goes out to 64 days. So he passes that off to Kevin Costner. This one's a little more obscure, but this is Kevin Costner's in a movie called The Postman, where he found a bunch of unwanted mail and delivered it to people that didn't want it. So Kevin Costner's role in our guest experience center is to take the next 63 days in some instances and continue sending those emails and trying to get a guest to engage from that initial lead that they submitted. And once they do, once a guest engages, one of the big benefits, and one of the reasons we did it, this one was on purpose, was to have the ability, as soon as a guest responds, since we freed up all the time the agents were sending emails, when a guest responds, we're now able to take that in real time and assign it to a human agent that is available right now to connect with somebody. So if somebody responds to that first email, in less than a minute, you could go through this entire process and have somebody on the phone with a customer. Or it could be, 3 weeks, a month later, somebody finally responds to something, and maybe they're more engaged now than they used to be, where now we've got a live person. It doesn't filter into a queue for somebody to communicate with. So let's jump to the next slide, Bobby. We'll talk about some of the intended objectives, why we did this project. First and foremost, as with most things that we've done with automation, are to reduce and eliminate our overhead expense, reduce our SG&A. We talked about the response times and trying to get a faster response to our guests. We're able to extend our communication cadence out to that 64 days, where the longer that cadence takes, the less likely a guest is to engage. So having people sending those emails, once you get to that tail end of that cadence, it becomes less cost effective. So we stopped doing it. With a robot, it doesn't cost us any extra to send another email and another one and another one. So we've been able to extend that cadence with the robot. And then I just mentioned improving the guest response time. So those were our intended objectives. Some of the actuals that we didn't know what was going to happen going into it is reporting. I mentioned all these CRM systems. It's one system, but 120 different instances of it. It didn't speak to each other. So you might have a lead at one store that doesn't correlate with a lead somewhere else. The robot reports on its activity back to us into a SQL server. And so it helps us understand where the guests are interested. So when we first turned this on at one store, we had 20 leads come in the first day. And I believe it was 17. It was a very high percentage. We're all on the same vehicle. And it highlighted something that we never would have noticed otherwise, which is that vehicle was priced wrong, right? Everybody was excited about it because it was priced wrong. So we were about to lose a bunch of money on it if we hadn't known. And so this highlighted that for us. But then operationally, this is where we hit the huge home run, is we increased our engagement by 75% from 4 to 7% engagement. And our closing ratio, right? Once they're engaged, do they actually buy a car? That increased 72%. So 15,000 leads a month on average. The manual way, 4% engagement would be 600 people. You close 7% of that, we would sell 42 cars. That's what we used to see. The new process with the robots supporting the communication, the same 15,000 leads, we see 1,050 people engage and close 12% of them. So we're selling 126 vehicles now where we used to sell 42, which is a huge operational benefit. So I think my time's just about up. I could talk about this all day. But with that, I think the next slide, if anybody has any questions or wants to just chit chat on automation, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I tell you, Peter and Jeff, that was awesome. I mean, not only did you talk about the ROI, which is tremendous, right, kind of across the board, but you showed how much fun automation can be with robots, right? Whether it's Blue bots or it's Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, Liam Neeson and Kevin Costner bots. I hope people on the call get a sense for the amazing impacts to the business, the transformational impacts, the quick impacts, but also that it's just fun. People like this, and once you realize robots are doing the work you hate, and they help you serve customers better, and it's a wonderful thing for employee engagement and employee experience. So thank you both very much. Josie, I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but back to you.
Well, listen, this was fantastic. What a great presentation on showing the potential and the realization of that potential of robotics process automation today. Very rich examples here shared. Thank you so much, Peter and Jeff, for that level of detail on the implementation, which is what our global audience is very interested on. So you mentioned this for your presentation. I want to ask one of the main themes that came up as part of the audience questions, which is you have talked about governance, you talked about structure, and how to get it right. Can you summarize for us, like in 30 seconds or so, what are some of your key advice, maybe for each one of you very quickly? What are some things that we must get right so that we can really harvest the value potential of RPA in our organizations?
Maybe Jeff, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. From my standpoint, I think Peter hit on it pretty good, but I totally agree with him. From a governance structure standpoint, and the steering committee, I think, is where it needs to start. And it doesn't necessarily need to be too formal, but as long as you've got a group of folks that have the right level of understanding of what's happening in the organization, strategic direction, and various different projects, that helps drive prioritization of the right things and the ability to get the right people involved, where you may be automating a specific process in one business unit, but there's going to be overlap somewhere else. And you're going to need that the support to be able to navigate across those business lines. So for me, it'd be that steering committee and having the ability to navigate through those challenges.
Terrific.
Peter?
Peter?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would also say, I would go as far as saying maybe even creating, one of the other things that it was create a governance committee, which was like another level down below the steering committee that included folks from IT, HR, internal audit, information security. So it was a cross-functional team that was more, leaders of functions that were more aware of what's going on the day-to-day, and it could really help to advise, right? If there's a potential automation that we're looking at that was sourced to us from a group that might be going through a transformation, or there may be a new application, that's going to impact that process, having that kind of cross-functional group really has helped us to stay in tune with what's going on, making sure we're aligned properly and not going down a path that's going to lead to that's not going to deliver the value long term that we hope.
Excellent. And Bobby, any final words you'd like to share with the audience?
Look, this is a fun, I've been in B2B a long time, lots of software companies and cloud companies. A lot of times it's a struggle to get ROI. It's a struggle to get excited about the impacts of these technologies. They take a long time, not with automation, not with RPA, as Jeff and Peter showed. It's exciting. Get your CFOs, CEOs, CIOs involved, because this is an exciting part of how companies can get more productive, people can get more excited and engaged, and customers and employees win.
Gentlemen, what a great presentation. Cross-industry leadership. You are a great demonstration on how to leverage great technologies to create value, and you are indeed creating the future today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your expertise with our global audience. We're all very grateful for that.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose, Bobby.
Thank you, Jose. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, what a great presentation from Bobby, Peter, and Jeff. Cross-industry examples on how digital transformation is taking place in a very practical way, in a very tactical way as well, where we're creating value, significant value for all stakeholders today. And this acceleration of RPA implementations throughout businesses has been fantastic, and it's great to have insights from true leaders and practitioners who are doing it, not just conceptually talking about this implementations. Terrific insights. Again, very thankful for their thought and industry leadership in this important area of digital transformation. We're going to be taking a break next now, and next we'll bring a great leader from Johannesburg, South Africa. We're going to talk a little bit about energy. We're going to talk about renewables. We're going to talk about digital technologies, and we're going to have the leadership of Steve Epps, who is the Chief Advisor Digital Transformation for USNC, which is Ultra Safe Nuclear Company. And come on, anyone whose last name is Epps, Mr. Epps, I mean, he was born to lead digital transformation. And we're going to hear directly from Steve and directly from his office in Johannesburg, South Africa. Very much looking forward to that. That will be the final session of day 2, and I hope to see you back here at the top of the hour.